kind of interesting that when you talk of saguaros, think of how long it takes for saguaro to grow to 1.5 inches. Any guesses? People will say 2, 4, 5. I'll only look at 10 years. 10 years for 1.5 inches in this area. Literally 30 years and 50 years. Now think about it. What's going to happen if you were to go hiking through the desert what's going to happen to the little saguaro seedling if you go hiking through the desert and veer off the hiking path? That little seedling is going to get squashed, which is not good for the actual seedling. Now, therefore, what's going to happen is that your saguaros are typically going to grow up under what we call a nurse plant. And I'm going to cut across. Over here, we have a Palo Verde with a whole series of saguaros growing below it. Now, that nurse plant is absolutely committed to raising a healthy adult saguaro. Think about it. If you were to be charged with designing the root system for a saguaro, given that in this area we can have rain coming down during our monsoon season at 1 inch in less than 10 minutes, would you design the root system to be shallow or deep? Well, shallow would be the way to go. Would you design the root system to be pretty well close up against the stem, or would you have that root system to be widespread? Certainly it'll be widespread, so much so that that root system will actually extend out beyond the saguaro as far as the saguaro is high. So in other words, if I were a saguaro, a 6-foot saguaro, my root system would go out 6 feet in every direction. Now the water is going to be gathered by the root system, and it's going to convey the water up into the saguaro via the ribs, the saguaro ribs. Those ribs will then deposit the water in the mucilage. Think of the mucilage as a sponge. Now, some of you might have seen those old John Wayne movies, and you know, John rides out into the desert having forgotten his water, and what does he do? He's seen cutting into a cactus. Well, think about that, because those saguaro spines are pretty vicious, so he'll lose a bit of blood, and if you want to actually have a look at the skin of the saguaro, it is thick, so he's probably going to lose a whole lot of perspiration. Now, he'll be able to get through that skin, and he'll be able to reach into the saguaro and literally grab this mucilage and squeeze it. He'll get some liquid into his mouth, and it'll taste acidic because he'll be putting oxalic acid into his mouth. And to cut a very long story short, if you drink a little bit of it, you get a little bit sick. I'm afraid John Wayne was wrong. Well, our saguaros are going to eventually get flowers at the age of 40 to 60 years. Those flowers are going to actually come out around about the middle of April, and they are going to be out at night. They'll last for 24 hours. So think about this. What has to happen during that time? Well, pollination has to occur. Pollination, well, we don't have much time to waste. Who are we going to put on the day shift? Turns out that we're going to put the white-winged dove on it. Now, of course, you all know how to identify a white-winged dove, right? Genius, it's got white wings on it. But that white-winged dove is primarily responsible for the day shift. And what about the night shift? Night shift turns out to be your bat, your Mexican lesser long-nosed bat. So this pollination takes place in 24 hours, and then after about 6 weeks, the saguaro gets its fruit. Those saguaro fruits are absolutely delicious. Think about it. If I were to try and explain it to you, think of a very heavy sweet melon. Add to it a shot of very good strawberry, and then add to that somewhere in the region of 1.5 to 3,500 crunchies, namely the seeds of that saguaro.